to do. They have some upgrading to do before they're going to be able to be big contenders. Crisp is the big next step, and they're going to hope that that one can take them over the edge and make them a competitor in this league.
Certainly want to give it their best shot. It's been a long time since LGD has been anywhere close to being around the world's conversation. I'm sure they're just like, man, we finally have a chance to be in the talks. We might as well, you know, give it our best shot here. A lot of junglers already taken off the board for this one here in game number 2. The Vi, the Nocturne, the Poppy, and the Lee Sin, all not going to be available in this draft. That leaves Jarvan as really the big priority jungler that is left available. And AL with first pick, it feels pretty obvious to me.
Yep, big pick here for Tarzan, his third most played of the season, and probably the one that isn't like one of those big carry picks for him, right? Apart from this, it's all assassins, but even he cannot resist the call of the Jarvan. It is a bit too powerful. He'll put it in the bag, even if he can't necessarily be a huge solo carry on it. LGD looking at that high prio Jace on the opposite side. We've seen this get flexed to jungle a little bit this season. I think default assumption is going to be that it's for Burdol in the top lane, and if Heng locks in this Xin Zhao, then it's going to be all but guaranteed.
We're getting some skirmishes if that Xin Zhao's coming through. We are getting some more early action coming in from LGD because that is a comp that is very much built to fight and to fight early in the game. Again, you don't want to over-talk about a lock. I think something like Skarner could very much be in play as well. It's Heng's most played champion across this entire year. It's something that Tarzan has a lot of experience with. It's actually going to flip to that Skarner, as we brought up, so that definitely actually is more intriguing to me. This gives you a lot of setup on the side of LGD and gives you more of a team fight option if you want to go for it. Jace can still be very effective in the 1v1, even into something like Rumble, if that does get locked in for Breathe, but you now have the opportunity to kind of build a more well-rounded draft than maybe you had in Game 1 with that Skarner being the primary tank.
Yeah. Still not going to let them dissuade... not going to let that Jace dissuade them from going from a potential hot pot composition here. So they do snap that one on up. Shanks now with the next pick looking at bot lane and just going to snap up this Varus for hope. Gives my man a lifeline away from the mage's bot lane and says, here, you can take this one.
I mean, it's his most played champion as well. Everybody's just getting comfort in this game. You get comfort and you get comfort. Everybody's just playing all their most played champions right now. I mean, Varus is still incredibly strong. I've been really on the Varus train all year long because the consistency of that champion and the versatility of whatever you want to do on the bot side makes a lot of sense. If you still want to draft an engager, you can absolutely do that. If you want to play in weak side, you can do that. Ezreal is a very good answer to be able to, you know, match the poke, and you are setting up this incredibly long-range poke, siege-oriented composition for LGD with the Jace and the Ezreal. But you have those tank stats coming in from the Skarner if you want to pick something more teamfight oriented in the mid lane. It's a much more well-rounded setup, and I think both of these teams are feeling pretty good about the start of their drafts here.
Definitely. This is Varus. We see a lot more on-hit builds these days, but the potential for a poke in its own right is still present if it is the build that you feel is more appropriate for the situation. I think both are in realms of viability where there are reasons and places to pick either or. The Nico going to get banned away here early on just to try to take away from a potentially strong poke-focused bottom lane. And, you know, there is still some flexibility available here for LGD. We have seen the Skarner go support. I would be surprised to see it with the Ezreal. I'd be surprised to see it against the Varus, but worth keeping in mind in case that a fantastic matchup does present itself elsewhere.
Yeah, I mean, technically, you know, things are, you know, shiftable. I would say that we're pretty locked in with what I would expect. I know you don't love generally a Varus into Ezreal matchup. Like, you would love to be able to move that around, but I don't see any reason to put hope on something that he's less comfortable on just to get a better matchup on the bottom side. I like the takeaway of the primary playmakers here from LGD, the Nico and the Nautilus taken off the board. We saw what Kael was able to do in terms of river control with the Camille, even if it wasn't always perfect in terms of the team fights. He got so much priority throughout a lot of the rest of that. I thought Bard was going to be a pretty easy other answer, but AL saying, we don't want Crisp to be able to have that Bard. It's one of his best champions of all time. So, you know, basically every primary playmaker off the board, and now the question is, do you want to prioritize that mid lane, or do you want to prioritize that potential support that can roam around and leave Ezreal on his lonesome?
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, Karma's up, so they're going to take Karma. AL decides they're more interested in banning away the Anivia from Tangyuan, which has been a very strong pick for him all year long, don't get me wrong. More so than they are interested in banning away both the Bard and the Karma. So if you're going to leave either of those up to go with the Ezreal, it's going to be an easy choice for Crisp. Takes the Karma, really strong poke bot lane for them now. Hope going to be able to pilot that Varus pretty on a pretty safe level, but the odds of being able to play a more dominant lane shrinking away from him pretty fast here. Kael just looking at this rel to be able to roam around the map and leave hope on his own. Shanks does take the Cassiopeia. Tangyuan going to get the final counter pick here. A bit of a pre-counter to the Rise, which I think would be the default pick for Tangyuan here.
That's exactly what this is. They're picking Cassio so that they don't pick Rise, because Rise is completely broken in LGD's draft, and so now you're kind of forced into this situation where you either pick the Rise and counterpick yourself, or you go a different direction. Victor is still up on the board. The other shove and roamers are available. Galio, Talia, these are champions that I think are pretty strong and have decent matchups into Cassio if you do want to go for it. The lock is hovered, but I'm not going to get my hopes up. I want to see lock so bad that, I don't want to get excited about any sort of hover, because I know that if it's not locked in, I'm just going to get burned in my own heart. So I'm expecting a roamer. The Talia being the lock-in makes some sense. I probably would have preferred Galio to like a smaller extent, but the Talia also really works with the comp that they've generated for themselves. And once again, they're going to have some agency, but it's not going to be a game that's going to get completely out of their hands.
Definitely. And the Talia, maybe something we don't get to see too much of these days, but still very much in that same wheelhouse. Let's Tangyuan push and roam. Going to be effective into the Cassiopeia, perhaps a little bit more so than something like the Rise. Gets to operate at a longer range, gets to avoid that miasma, is not at risk of getting run down by the Twin Fangs in quite that same way, as long as he's accurate with the seismic shoves. And I like it as a synergy with the Skarner as well. Gives you an opportunity to build your own wall stuns if the situation calls for it. So I like the draft at LGD. I like the choice here, but they're going to need to perform, right? They're going to need to be able to level up what they've shown us so far. They're going to need to be able to make good on the promise of this Jace in the laning phase, giving themselves that really strong lane that they do end up with into the Rumble.
I mean, that's the thing, right? Is when you look at LGD's draft, it's all about their mid-game power spike. It's all about what you can do to start stacking these objectives and generating gold leads for yourself. We can talk about LGD's comp being good. AL's comp has so much engage again in terms of finding their way onto the backline. You have Rel, you have Jarvan, you have plenty of ways to start fights. And you've got Varus, Cassio, Rumble in terms of damage in the later part of the game. AL does have the scaling. They are going to get to these team fights and feel relatively good, but they have to get there. That's where that mid-game power spike comes in for LGD, and they got to keep their foot on the gas. This is LGD's, game to control, and it's going to be up to whether or not they can do it successfully.
Absolutely. There are the AL fans. We found them. They're a little quiet in game number one, but getting some good support out of both of these fan bases for game number 2.
Gotta love that the LGD fan base is really reignited. I know Crisp is getting a lot of the credit for that, and I'm sure he deserves it, but LGD has been, one of those permanent fixtures in the LPL. We sometimes forget that they are one of the historic organizations in the region because it's been so long since they've been relevant. Back in 2020 was the last time they made Worlds, and obviously it's a very different team with Peanut on that roster. They, are hoping to kind of get back into that kind of form, but they're definitely giving their fans hopefully something to cheer for here in the early game in game number 2.
Yeah, I mean, if you start with LGD this long, you got to be thrilled with this set of 4 guys. 4 guys. I mean, you're definitely happy to have Crisp on the lineup. In a while since you had a big name like that, but also to even be here in Group Ascend, to be playing a double round robin in the 6-team group, or the 8-team group rather. It feels a lot better than the alternatives, because you've been living with the alternatives for quite a bit of time now. Definitely going to be a lot to celebrate. Hoping to be able to celebrate a win here today as well, as this top lane is where I really want to focus. Burdol needs to be able to build up a lead in the one-on-one here up against Breathe. Already Breathe finding an angle with the overheat, looking to turn it back in the other direction. Gets good damage here, threatening the flash. Splashes get traded, but the Harpoon connects anyway. And Breathe running down Burdol, waiting to burn him down with the passive. Can't do it! The rune isn't enough!
I cannot believe that he survived that. That looked like an absolute kill with the passive. Tarzan was making his way up top as well, which I think is really smart from Tarzan to path onto this side of the map. The teleport's going to come in, but that is a monumental non-kill for Breathe. He's going to be able to stabilize this laning phase, but not getting that gold might actually come back to bite him. That was probably his best shot early on in this game.
I cannot believe the Deathfire damage wasn't enough there.
Yeah.
Scammed by the new and OP rune. Not even that new anymore. And, yeah, Breathe has to walk away without the kill. Still, relieves some pressure on himself. Gets the flash trade. But still, oh boy, that's a tilter. You're going to be kicking yourself after not picking up this one.
I mean, Breathe picked this matchup. He clearly understood exactly what he needed to do to try to get an advantage here. It's a good flash from Burdol, pretty much instant, but he still gets hit by the E, actually, so maybe it's not a good flash. I really thought the Deathfire was going to be enough to burn him down. How much health did he live on? 7! 7 health was the magic number from Burdol to survive that exchange. He's going to feel very fortunate to be able to walk out, and he's going to be able to keep that gold lead without giving too much over to the Rumble.
And, you know, in hindsight, I think Breathe optimized his damage there. I don't think there's anything Breathe could have done to get more damage out. He got the last tick of the Flame Spitter. If he keeps going, he just dies to turret and probably still doesn't get the kill. So, props to Burdol for taking Grasp, I guess. That's the difference in this one.
You know, it's those little things that can really make the biggest difference, and I'm sure Burdol's going to be happy about those little things, but I'm interested to see if more pressure gets put on the top side, especially with no flash now available for either top laner. I actually think Jarvan can make a pretty big impact on this lane as a whole. It's very Jace favored in isolation, but Jarvan does a really good job of dealing with Jace if you do want to, you know, actually spend a lot of resources to make sure that Burdol continues to get put in a weaker and weaker position. You don't exactly have a ton of other lanes that you want to give a ton of resources to. Cassio's in a decently good spot to continue to farm up, but definitely going to be curious to see if Tarzan stays as active as he was in game number 1.
For sure. So far, quiet clears from both junglers. Not getting themselves involved in the battle in the top lane. And Tarzan going to look to cross map here, knowing both mid laners are on the recall. Just getting himself a little bit of vision, getting himself a little bit of a pass. Wants to keep track of Heng, but all in all, I think the fact that it's been an uneventful first few levels for the jungle is going to feel pretty good for Heng, who does, of course, have a lot to gain by getting access to that Impale.
Yeah, this is exactly what we were talking about. Look at Breed's XP bar. He is so close to level 6 if they go for this dive.
Yeah, probably not going to get it. Good shock blast onto the wave. Going to be able to clear it out. Breathe is taking up the turret. Breathe is going to take an amped up shot, but he survives the sliver too. And Luck going to give a little bit of favor back over towards the AL side here too, as neither of these top laners go down despite getting put in incredibly bad situations.
It's a huge win for LGD. It's Dragon for nothing. And in fact, you actually gain on the top side. It's really just a good look. Breathe not hitting level 6 completely dissuades that entire play. I think that was kind of the entire plan from Tarzan is drop the equalizer, but Breathe not hitting that breakpoint was a massive problem. Burdol ends up being able to once again outplay on the top side, and not only do LGD have a roughly 1k gold lead almost entirely spread out throughout all of their lanes, but they're going to be starting to stack those dragons, which we saw was so important for at least AL in game number 1.
Yeah, definitely. They start to push out into the bottom side. Looking to crash the wave, get Shaoye and Chris back. Making good on this lane-dominant Ezreal Karma duo that they drafted for themselves, and pulling up about 2 waves worth of CS, it looks like. It doesn't seem like Hope's going to get much more back in his favor here. Oh, a really strong start for Shaoye. He's got the cult here, farming duo up as well. Set up very nicely in this bottom lane, and Kael yet to be able to be unlocked from this bottom lane as he does start to stack up the support quest. We'll see if he can have some influence alongside Tarzan around the map.
This is exactly what you draft the Karma for. You're giving up quite a bit of playmaking potential around the map, and even really team fighting potential in the later part of the game, but this laning phase is going to be a lot more difficult for Kael, for this Rel, and specifically for Hope on this Varus, who wants to try to generate some sort of neutral game state, but already has trouble doing that into the poke from Ezreal, and that's only compounded by the fact that Karma is going to make that even more difficult. So definitely got to keep an eye on where Hope is at from a gold perspective. Team fighting does become more difficult for this team fighting comp of anyone's legend if you can't get there with a Varus actually being able to do a bunch of damage in the later part of the game.
It's really going to be the challenge here. Try to be able to contest. It does look like it's going to be that poke Varus, by the way, out of Hope. Does have the Arcane Comet going for the serrated Dirk on the first recall. Has the tier. He's trying to stack up as well. So going to have a really big initial oomph of damage alongside that Cataclysm and the Equalizer. Going to try to be melting down some of these squishier targets with just that combo. Going to be trying to challenge the poke game just a little bit. Heng going to spot Tarzan as he walks by his blue buff here. He actually has a 1-level lead right now. Not going to try to challenge for it. Does have some backup from the team in the river.
Yeah, Breathe is getting shadowed a little bit, but it's not going to be quite deja vu of game number 1. Heng still has that 1-level lead just like he did previously, but this time it's LGD with full control over these grubs.
Grub's already starting to fall on down. Heng at the very
Shanks
least going to be able to pick up the first one, but the rest of AL have something to say about this. Miasma already came out, so Heng going to be able to get over the wall. There's going to be the Cataclysm on top of Crisp, locked inside with the Equalizer, but they have to turn back, get into the pit, and start fighting with Heng. Shake's going to have the damage to be able to finish him up with Twin Fangs. Crisp now burning down to this amped up Flame Spitter. Tarzan smites him and chases him to his grave. Tangyuan falls low, but is going to be able to stay alive. Fends off Kael and Shanks, but does not pick up anything in the way of gold for LGD. It's a 2-0 for AL.
LGD just have no damage in that fight. They are separated almost entirely. You have the Skarner and the Talia together. The Jace is coming down from the top side, but AL are grouped up. They have a conglomeration right in the middle of the river, and they're just able to separate what LGD want to do. We're going to get a replay. It's nice that you have priority over these grubs, but Tarzan has a really good engage onto the Karma. You link it up with the Hot Pot, the Equalizer, and look at the bottom half of this fight as well. Kael just does a great job of peeling this Skarner off of the Cassiopeia, who gets to free fire. The Talia can't match in terms of damage at this point in the game, and the Karma had already been caught out. There's no way to win this when all of your damage dealers are just completely isolated. Burdol gets one Shock Blast off, but that's his entire contribution to the fight. It's really well done by AL to equalize the goal.
Yes, 4v4 split into 2 isolated 2v2s, both of which are losing for LGD. Not a good engagement for them, and I do believe the majority of the grubs ended up going the way of AL as well. Don't have that timer on the screen, but at the very least, I think it was 2 for 1 to AL. I'm going to operate on that assumption. We'll see if I get proven otherwise at some point later down the line. But really good for Tarzan to be able to step up, challenge Heng on those grubs, and come out ahead with the team fighting capabilities brought in by their ult combos.
Yeah, and one of the things I really want to point out, you have a lot of poke on the side of LGD. You certainly have a lot of range and siege potential if you want to play for these side lanes, but I'm looking at Cassiopeia, and while the range is a problem for that champion, you have so much engage on AL that if they're the ones starting these fights, now that you have a small gold lead on Cass, and you're going to be able to start getting that Roa completed, getting her in side lanes, farming up, and getting to those power spikes quicker, like, you cannot be giving her free gold like this in the early game. It's only going to get more difficult. Dragon has spawned, AL are in the river first, and they should have full control over whether or not they want to take a fight here.
They definitely should. Stepping up here, going to be able to find the flag and drag, but there's a nice shuffle found by Tangyuan from the fog, but is it going to be enough? Tarzan section away from the rest of the team, flashes back up the wall. Heng now going to get re-engaged onto. Petrifying Gaze slows him up, and finally he will fall. There's another big shuffle from Tangyuan, though. Will be able to clean up Kael, but it's just not enough damage. Hope and Shanks are pumping out more than LGD can match. A 2-for-1 fight for AL.
I mean, it's just everything going wrong. Tangyuan's trying his best to get Shanks.
Ooh,
I don't think he can. I think he just walks away. It's a disaster for LGD. I hope we get a replay of that because, again, everything went wrong. You have Heng completely whiffing the Skarner ultimate. You have 0 damage coming up from Tangyuan on the Talia, despite the fact that he's hitting those seismic shoves. Dragon now going over to AL that stops the stacking from LGD. I mean, that is the kind of play that completely turns the game in favor of AL. Once again, you know, they have full control over whether or not they want to take this fight. Heng is trying to posture aggressively because you don't want to give this over for free, and he feels like he has backup, but look at where Ezreal is. He's not ready to actually join this fight, and you have Talia and Karma that are free-firing against the Cassio. Burdol's actually going down in live.
That's a flash forced out, gets right back in there now that he dodged out on the crash down. But yeah, I mean, it's hard to pressure damage onto Kael here. You're not going to one-shot this level 6 Rel, and oh boy, here's Kael just to disrupt, just making it difficult to recall, wasting more of Burdol's time, giving more time to breathe to be able to hit on this turret, and still looking up for AL here. In this last fight, you really got to call it that LGD have not been able to really make use of this Talia pick. I think Tangyuan's played the fights well, found the seismic shoves, found double seismic shoves twice in that last engagement, but He just can't match the damage output of the Cassiopeia. He needs to be able to create odd-numbered scenarios and has yet to be able to do it. He's forced to flash in the one-on-one.
It's just disgusting. I mean, look at the items. Tangyuan has Blackfire Torch completed. Shanks is sitting on a Catalyst, and Shanks is forcing the flash. Like, this is an absurd situation, and this is the problem. I love the Cassio into Taliyah matchup because I just think you have so much more damage throughout basically the entirety of the game. Shanks has ultimate available, and Tangyuan just by nature has to back off. This mid lane pick is very much not working out, and if you're going to be missing a lot of your stuns coming in from the Skarner as well, it's going to be really difficult to take any of these fights as they try to control this river, but AL are once again just going to play safe, get more gold onto the Varus, and continue to scale.
That's the game plan for AL, and they are playing to it just fine. Shanks does complete the Roa here at about 13 minutes. Not the earliest Roa in the world, but should be just fine according to schedule, with the Dragons tied up at 1 apiece. We are going to have this Rift Herald coming up here in about 90 seconds. That's the next potential front in this game. We'll see if AL even want to try to challenge for it, because for right now, Shanks on the bottom side of the map.
Yeah, through all this, Heng still is a little bit up in terms of XP, about half a level instead of the full level that he was earlier, but does still have a small advantage. Kael trying to get as much vision as he can around this river, but it's just to keep Shanks safe. There's nothing that LGD can fight for right now. They're walking around as a death ball and just running into the river. They're not really accomplishing much with this 500 gold lead that they have, and that gold lead is almost entirely on the Ezreal, and while that's going to be effective, he's not really been in any of these fights. When you look at all the engages that have happened, it's Heng, it's Crisp, it's Tangyuan, and they have to make sure that they can get Shaoye a little bit more involved for some of these plays moving forward. 30 seconds are roughly on this Herald spawning, and I imagine this is something AL is going to want to fight for again.
I would also imagine this to be the case. Breathe pushing up on this top side. Burdol going to find himself a way on in, and is going to be able to push Breathe back underneath his turret. About half HP, but he will be fine for right now. Rift Herald, again, coming up here any second now.
Would be certainly nice for LGD to be able to pick that up if they can. They have to control side lanes if they really want any chance of being able to play this game, and you're hopeful that obviously they're going to be able to set up properly around some nice wards and to have some nice vision control. You see Tangyuan at least pushing out the side wave for now. It's actually going to be Breathe that ends up matching that with that teleport available, so it's going to be at least a little bit of control in favor of LGD because they have that Weaver's Wall. It's just what can they do with it with both junglers on the bot side.
Well, they do manage to chunk Shaoye out a little bit here. Hope finding a well-placed arrow there. And now here comes... Actually, never mind. Thought they were going to go for a little bit of a play here on towards Shanks, but Chris is going to try to recall, get himself interrupted, and they are going to move away from that Herald for the time being, instead perhaps paying some more attention towards Dragon number 3.
I mean, that's another thing, is Dragons have been very crucial, I'll just say, in the series up until this point. Tarzan showing that with the bot lane priority, this invade. Keep an eye on Burdol, he's wrapping around here. Missed the shock blast, that could have been very relevant.
Pulling away that blue buff, Tarzan finds it anyway. Chases it down, smites it away. Little mental advantage going the way to AL
Crisp
here. And Crisp is forced to flash.
It's another win for AL. I mean, they're just getting things for free. LGD is posturing way too aggressively. They're looking for Breathe, but he's respectful. He's backing off, and Tarzan gets the blue buff. They get Karma Flash. They get the Crab. Dragon is spawning. They have priority over River. Hope is getting a free wave mid and pushing that in. They have full control over this map right now. AL are just getting everything they want.
Tarzan pulling up around the top side, does move away from the Dragon, gets the blue buff and the flash, and now just says, hey, time to put pressure on a Tangyuan, who's going to be forced to Weaver's Wall defensively. That's the first Weaver's Wall of the game here, Kman, and it is not accomplishing what you draft the Taliyah to do. Well,
let's not forget the Weaver's Wall in the fight earlier to try and kill Shanks after the fight was over, and failed that one as well. Breathe is going to be a bit of a target on the bot side here, though.
Try to make it cross map, does his best to clear out the wave with the equalizer, but maybe forced to flee and not being able to clear out the wave fast enough. Does get the flashback away. The turret is doing so much damage to Heng. He's finally going to be able to create the space to get away, but Kael locks him down underneath the turret. One more shot finds its way back out of Burdol, and it's a 1-for-1 exchange.
A 1-for-1, but it's a proactive play from LGD. They needed to make something like that happen on the map, and I think it's a good call. It's well done by Kael to at least pull some gold back. Burdol, in particular, being the one to die there is really not ideal. You want him on the map trying to pick up some of this gold, but at the end of the day, it's going to be that traded for the Herald. They did give over the Dragon earlier, and so these objectives are getting a little bit murky, but it's definitely going to be some more gold into the pocket of AL from the Herald eventually. For now, we get a replay of this dive. Breathe does a good job to try and get as much damage down as possible. Crisp is just kind of sitting in the equalizer for a majority of that play. Kael is able to keep Burdol under tower with the ultimate. It's a good trade back 1-for-1, and again, Breathe does a great job to maximize his damage there, but AL now has a 1.5k gold lead, and they have more to take on the map. This is very, very scary right now for LGD.
Yeah. Really good move from Kael there to be able to snag him in that Magnet Storm, guarantee that he'd be held into the turret, and really hose LGD on that dive. And of course, in that same moment, the Rift Herald did go over to AL. We now see that it was 2-for-1 for grubs for LGD, by the way, so they do have that faint grub advantage if they are able to actually get some time to push in the side lane. But as we saw with that dive, opening up Burdol to play dominantly in the one-on-one has not been a condition they've been able to create so far. Heng,
Oh, Crisp?
Crisp is the one who gets caught out here. It's Tarzan going in for the engage, goes to the flag and drag over the wall. The snipe from Hope will be able to find the kill. Heng going to be next up on the menu. He just has no backup. He's in the middle of nowhere. Stinging 2, die into the other 3, and an advance forward from AL in this 5 versus 3 is going to give them a complete wipe. It's a triple kill to Hope.
A triple kill for Hope. The Herald's gonna get dropped in the mid lane to take this tower as well. That's even more gold going into the pocket of the Varus, the only champion that was in a bad state coming out of the early game. I know that you can look at a game state, you can see a 500 or a 1k gold lead for LGD, you can see that the map state's okay. This was always going to be in AL's hands. They have played this map so well so far, and they're just capitalizing on every single one of LGD's mistakes. That was just the piece de resistance on top of what has been a lot of really good plays for them throughout this mid-game. As Tarzan just goes over the wall here, Crisp once again just without vision. And that's been a huge issue for LGD in both of these games. We incentivized it in game number 1. It's definitely been a problem here in game number 2. The moment you take down that Karma, it's a great stun from Hope. Heng is completely disconnected. Breathe is 2v1ing on the back end of this fight, both of the carries as well. There's just not really a lot you can do. LGD don't have enough damage at this point. This is the part of the game they're supposed to be the strongest, and they're just getting outplayed.
Yeah, I mean, Breathe TP's in there, takes the attention of 2 members, cuts off the path of approach from Burdol, and leaves Heng completely out to dry. This cannot get anything done there. Really clever flank there from Tarzan, taking advantage of the blank spots in LGD's vision. And that was a back-breaking team fight. AL find themselves up 4,000 gold now.
Look, we wanted to see this version of AL. Even in game number 1, we were hoping, we were praying to actually start to get a more consistent version of this team. I think they've played this game incredibly well. They've set themselves up as strong as they can possibly be. Baron is on the map. Dragon is spawning in a minute, but it's not something that I imagine AL is going to prioritize super heavily. LGD doing a good job to at least get some vision down, but they have to be super careful here. Tarzan is immensely strong, and I know we don't have the graph up on the screen, but Shanks is up 2,000 gold right now on Cassiopeia, and that's probably the biggest threat you can have in this game.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, he's still scaling up, right? He just finished his Seraphs. Yeah. He's going to have the fully stacked Roa in a couple of minutes, but he's not even peaking yet. He's got a little ways to go, and things are not looking up for LGD here. They need to be able to kind of find a pick. They need to be able to chain CC. They need to be able to attack with a numbers advantage, and they have just not been able to do that.
I mean, I know I'm harping on it. I don't want to bring it up too much, but man, the vision control out of AL has just been immaculate, and it's been terrible from LGD, and I think that really has been a huge difference in this series. LGD finally starting to commit to at least overloading to secure these wards, but it might be too little too late. Breathe and Tarzan are looking right now, and you can't really be caught out as these low mobility threats as this dragon spawns.
Kael approaching from the mid lane, but not going to find his engage angle quite yet. Shanks is going on a deep flank on the Cassiopeia, though. All the members of LGD grouped up at the bottom side of this river as they want to see if they can get themselves onto Soul Point. Kael spotted on this ward. Burdol and Tangyuan going to be able to fend off that potential angle of approach, so AL going to have to take this front to back. Sting comes through. Smite is successful for Heng, but he's once again cut off, this time by the Equalizer. Nowhere for the Scorpion to go, and he will be melted down. Now they get the knock up onto Burdol, chasing onto him, cutting apart the members of LGD, taking on each member one at a time, and now they engage 5 versus 3. Shaoye locked down for Kael. Hope is able to finish off Tangyuan. Crisp is the last one standing, caught between a rock and a hard place, and he's gonna fall down to both of them. Shanks cleans up the ace for AL.
It's just beautiful from anyone's legend. They continue to decimate and dominate the game. Pings are going down onto the Baron as well from Tarzan and from Hope. The amount of damage that this comp is able to output is genuinely insane. We see the setup here, and this is a 50-50, but let's not forget, it's 2 dragons versus 1. AL is not here to guarantee secure themselves the dragon. They are here to absolutely decimate LGD. That Equalizer does half of the Ezreal's health bar before the fight starts, and you want to flank on Jace? I'm sorry, man. You're just going to get caught out by the Rel. You don't even have an escape path because the Jarvan's held the Cataclysm the whole time. Shanks is free-firing. This lethality Varus is absolutely torching them on the backline, doing so much damage. And now they have Baron as well to continue this push. It's a great look from AL.
Looking good in game number 2. AL making this a completely one-sided affair. LGD did secure that dragon, so they are 1 away from Soul, but they are not looking like they're in a position where Soul could save them. AL, with a 7,000 gold lead, prepared to just eradicate these fights, no matter what the dragon count looks like.
Yeah, Burdol's gonna have to run away from the wave on the top side, and if there's a Dragon Soul I don't want it to be if I'm LGD in this game, it's Ocean Soul. It's really just not super helpful when you're the poke comp and the enemy team bursts you in 2 seconds. It's not a lot of healing coming through, or time for healing, I should say, in these fights, as the Baron buff is being used to take down this top lane tier 2. Tangyuan's gonna try and get something on the bottom side of the map as this Talia, but they're just gonna lose so much for this on the top lane.
Kael guiding their Baron minions in, taking inner turrets. Now looking to threaten on towards the inhibitor. Tangyuan just completed a recall. Heng holding mid lane up against Tarzan. Interesting positioning here as Heng is looking for a flank, but Tarzan watched him move in here, and the rest of AL are just coming in from the top side. This is going to be the fight start off. Kael gets a massive magnet storm onto 2. And we've asked it many times this series, but what is Heng doing?
It's just absurd. I mean, Heng is just way too far forward. Tangyuan and Crisp end up paying the price, but I wanted to see the Wombo Gordo, and I think we got the Wombo combo. We got the absolutely devastating Cataclysm into Rel ult, into Equalizer. All of Hope's damage coming through. The base is getting cracked open. Shaoye is getting taken down by this Cassio, who has stepped up beyond all of her front line. The Ezreal's not going to quite take down the Rumble, but it is going to dissuade them. The 9k gold lead certainly is proof enough of the fantastic play, and I think AL are going to feel pretty good about the situation they've gotten themselves in. They're just playing this so well, and quite frankly, LGD are not putting up too much of a resistance.
No, not at all. Not at this stage. Burdol going to be able to pick up an objective bounty right here. Will get himself a fair chunk of gold. But these shock blasts have just been getting absorbed like they're nothing. Really wanted a more significant lead here, but has not been able to actually clean up any of the fights. 16-2 in the kill score will do that to you. AL now finding themselves with an incredibly powerful position coming in towards an attempted Soul.
I mean, this has been a problem that LGD has had all year long. We're going to get the cinematic replay of this, the Cataclysm, right into the Rel engage, and there's just nowhere to go for these immobile carries. The damage from the Varus just absolutely obliterating them. Heng just has to sit back and watch the fruits of his labor tear apart his entire team as AL continues their push. Their Baron buff has expired, but that certainly doesn't mean their combat power has.
No, not at all. And approaching the 3-item Cassiopeia, their combat power may in fact be at an all-time high. Guardian Angel onto Tarzan, can't even work your way through to Jarvan any longer. Cooldowns largely back up, only missing the flash on Kael after that last engagement. And the entire bottom side on a stranglehold for AL. They're going to be plenty ready for this next dragon. I don't see any way that LGD can even take a shot at this Soul.
I understand that AL is obviously playing a team that they're supposed to be, but man, am I so excited to see this team look this way. We were asking and praying for them to be more decisive in the mid-game, to make smarter decisions, to play around what they drafted for. This is a comp that is built to team fight, that is not built to fight early. LGD were making the mistakes of being able to say, hey, we're Jace, we're Ezreal, we're Karma, you know, we're not going to push our tempo, and AL was the one to take advantage of that. It's a brilliant look from a team that is trying to get back on top, and this Dragon will certainly help put it away even further, as LGD's really only hope is this soul.
Yeah, good performances in the early skirmishes out of AL here. You know, Tarzan's always been pretty good at calling those when he does have the tools to be able to make them turn into his squad's favor, but yeah, like what we're seeing out of Breed this game, perhaps more than last game, where they were able to combine together, they were able to win the grub fight, they were able to start things turning in their favor, and they just never let it go.
It's clinical gameplay from AL. It's a team that knows what they're doing, a team that has clear direction and feels like they have a purpose on the map. It's what we've been waiting for all year. For LGD, it's the complete opposite. It's a failure to understand exactly what your comp does well. It's not really fighting around the Ezreal, who has this big early game lead, and watching him slowly get overtaken by the Varus, and Heng, of course, with his overextensions. There can be potentially some miracle plays in the back end of the game, but that's what they need to be, miracles at this point.
And Tangyuan is mega shoved up at the bottom side, so well and truly aware that they are in a 5 versus 4 for the time being is AL. They're going to end up sending Breed down to the bottom lane just to make sure that this guy doesn't get too much for free. He might get an objective bounty here, though. Those 2 grubs paying off for Tangyuan. He does claim 300 more gold, but that turret is not going to do much in the face of this significant gold lead, and just continuing to be strangled out of their own jungle. LGD are having a difficult time finding resources to come by.
I mean, at this point, AL can just back really efficiently, go to Baron, take it in 15 seconds, and just push for game. It's going to be really hard to try and fight around that major objective. If you're ever going to do it, this is the shot, LGD. Can't really allow them to have that for free. It's going to be very, very difficult to walk into them with this team fighting comp, but this is likely going to be their last stand coming up as Baron spawns.
Yeah, Kael's got flash back up. That was how they started off the last fight. He's at 100% KP this game. He's in a position to continue to find and execute on beautiful fight angles for AL. And you mentioned it at the beginning of the night, him getting to be back on these kinds of primary engage, a real positive sign for AL here. The fact that he could be on this rel, threatening to pull the trigger at any moment, really, really feels good and comfortable for AL in comparison to how they've had to play the game throughout a lot of this year.
It definitely looks like it's made a massive difference for AL. They've looked so much more active, so much more decisive. Kael is such an integral piece of why this team was able to find so much success over the course of last year. Let's not forget, yes, they had success in 2025, but the core of this team, Shanks, Hope, and Kael, were around for 2024 as well. They've really become the franchise players for anyone's legend, and seeing them back in their element is exciting as this Baron has started, and LGD is nowhere near. They're giving this up as Heng is desperately trying to make his way in.
Throwing the Scryers so they see what's going on. Trying to attack Hope, but Tangyuan going to be forced to flash over the wall. Kael going to pull the trigger, just takes the isolated Tangyuan down. And here comes Tarzan into the back line of 3-man Cataclysm. Forces out flashes from Crispin Shaoye, but Shanks is waiting on the other side to bite them down. AL find another clean ace to close out this series. 2-0, anyone's legend up at the top of Group Ascent.
Anyone's legend silenced the haters after a rough first series. They come back with a dominant performance here on day number 3 and get themselves to a 2-0 start in the summer split.
Easy peasy, 21-2, 100% KP to Kael. Give that man his flowers. He's back on Engage, and that is exactly how AL like it. A great showing from them in both games, especially game number 2, where they just get to flex everything that has made them a fantastic team over the last 2 years.
I mean, it felt like classic AL. We've been sitting here all split long, all season long, talking about how, AL just feels different. They don't feel like the same version of themselves. They're not quite as dominant in the mid game. They're not really making the right macro calls. And, we've talked about a lot of, factors for that. I think generally a lot of people have gravitated towards the coaching staff and a lot of the changes that have happened in the offseason off the Rift with Tabe going over to JDG. To me, something I've pointed out consistently, this team's been out of meta for months leading up into this year. They have not wanted to play Karma. They've not wanted to play Lulu. That's not my AL. They want to play Rel. They want to play champions like this. They want to play Rel, Jarvan, and just pick Cassiopeia and enable this, enable Shanks to be in as good of a spot as possible. That's what they did here today, and it looked as dominant as we've seen from them.
Certainly did. Really, really strong stuff, and gonna give you hope if you're an AL fan coming in towards the rest of this season that they can get back to the form that they showed at their peak last year, back when they had Tabe still as coach, get themselves a potential LPL title. Certainly a strong Worlds performance, getting to get a little bit more international props under your belt. As you mentioned earlier in the night, this is not an org that has historically had a lot of success. They don't have that big story, international history, the way that some of the other organizations in this league do. And they would love to start building up that trophy case a little bit more while they have this lineup.
Their first ever international tournament was last year as an org. So, like we just have to keep reminding ourselves. We feel so comfortable with AL because they were so good throughout all of 2025. The expectations grew so much for this team that, they don't have this history of being what, a lot of these other orgs have been. Even a JDG or, a BLG has certainly started to establish their own little resume after also not being a great org for a very long time. Like, this is a new era of the LPL, and Anyone's Legend looks to be an org that really wants to cement their spot, not just as a team that was good for a little bit and then kind of lost momentum. No, they want to establish a perennially good team that they can continue to build. They've made a change on the top side to keep that going, and at least in this series, it looked pretty okay.
No, absolutely. They're still got their main core together, and their main core still driving how they want to play the game. And I mean, this is just a clean one across the board here. A really great job enabling these carries, which has always been the name of the game for this team, right? Tarzan and Kael know how to play the map, know how to set up these favorable plays. As we mentioned, Kael comes out with 100% KP, Tarzan comes out with 100% KP -1. He missed out on one of them over the course of the game. Although now that it says 90%, makes me think he may have missed the second one at the end of that fight. Maybe somebody died out of range of the Demacian standard or something. We don't have to worry about that too much. The point being, these two are the driving force behind every team fight, every skirmish, every engagement. And Kael and Hope, they do their job, or sorry, Shanks and Hope rather. They do their jobs. They're in the right positions, and it's a pretty easy job to do when you have these guys setting up for you.
Look, I've been flamed a lot online, Gordo, over the past 12 months for saying this about a good Anyone's Legend team, but this team is built through Tarzan and Kael. Shanks, Hope, they're good players. They certainly are able to, separate themselves. They are great executors in the back end of the game, especially Shanks, who is very stable. But this team goes as far as Tarzan and Kael go. They are the two best players on Anyone's Legend. They are the two most important players on Anyone's Legend, and they showed up here today. Kael looks so much better when he gets to play these champions, and I just think that one full split of this, the expectation for AL is like, oh, we'll go to Worlds and see what can happen. This team was the #1 seed in the regular season in split #1 when it was also an engager meta. It only became an enchanter meta in the playoffs of split #1. That's when AL started to fall off. We are now back into that same meta that they already found some success on, that they were already, finding their good form in. Their new top laner is pretty aggressive. I don't think he had too much of an impact here today, but Tarzan and Kael were so good playing these, champions that they become so comfortable with. If they play anything like this, I mean, this is a team that can compete to win the LPL, especially with some weaker teams near the top of the standings right now.
Yeah, and that's what is on the mind here, is just how far can this AL team go? Can they reach back to those higher highs? So far tonight, up against an LGD team that has just made its first appearance in Group Ascend for the year. Certainly looking like they can. Excited to see them as they continue to face off against some of the other big contenders that we are keeping in mind over the course of this split as time goes on.
It's going to be fun no matter what, Gordo. I mean, we've got ourselves a banger in the LPL. We thought it was going to be simple. We thought it was a one-team region. It's definitely not. AL have re-emerged as a true contender. And we've got some more fun games left today. AL's probably not the only team that's going to be, looking at some of these results, hoping and praying that they can turn some success. JDG is right up after this. They suffered, of course, a loss to AL, and it's going to be interesting to see how they rebound in just a couple of minutes.
Yeah, certainly. It is a triple game day, so there is plenty more to check on out. Hope you all are going to stick around for it. We are going to throw it to a break here. We're going to hand things over to Grapes and Melvin. We're going to take you through the second series of the day. Still, stay tuned. There's plenty more LPL action. We'll see you guys after this.